All right, the big recent story I'll be talking about is the Florida shooting and all of the policies that should probably accompany it. And I'll be spending a lot of time on that, so that's basically all I'm going to be covering today. Today is Monday, February 19th, 2018. My name is Jason Riley, and this is the Riley Report. All right, we're going to jump right into it. So the first I want to talk about the difference between the right and the left. So what the left seem to do when something like this happens is they jump straight to stricter gun laws, while the right says they're immediately everybody's on the left just starts screaming gun control, gun control. We need gun control, and nobody ever really knows what they mean by that. But the right always says steps back and says, let's wait, let's look at the statistics and what exactly happened, and then they support a policy based off the facts of the situation. Usually the left always screams do something, but they rarely offer exactly what to do. So our big question is what they want to do. A lot of people on the left don't know, and what they really want to do is something that nobody wants to do. So what the right wants to do, when the right asks what to do, they are told they do not want to do anything. So when the right says, okay, then what do you propose? And they get screamed at in the face you don't want to do anything, you don't want to do anything. So you can't just be yelling less guns and whatnot, and then just be really generic and not have any specifics about what you want. So I'm going to first talk about Jimmy Kimmel, somebody who is really dumb when it comes to politics. I think so, and I like deconstructing him because he's not that intelligent. He thinks he's a genius because he's a celebrity, which is not at all true. So
as I'm sure you know and feel, this is another very sad day in America, another senseless shooting, this time at a high school in Parkland, Florida, where a gunman, a former student, opened fire yesterday. Again, 17 lives have been lost, more than a dozen people are hospitalized, and our president, as he should, weighed in on the tragic events this morning from the White House.
We are all joined together as one American family, and your suffering is our burden also. No child, no teacher should ever be in danger in an American school.
Agreed.
No parent should ever have to fear for their sons and daughters when they kiss them goodbye in the morning.
Agreed. So I agree with both of those statements. And here's what you do to fix that. Tell your buddies in Congress, tell Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and Marco Rubio, all the family men who care so much about their communities, that what we need are laws, real laws, that do everything possible to keep assault rifles out of the hands of people who are going to shoot our kids. Go on.
Okay, Jimmy Kimmel, so since you think you are our Lord and Savior and know everything, what exactly do you propose? I'm pretty sure we're all waiting. What do you define as real laws? And I'm doing that with air quotes. What are your real laws that you want to see happen?
And tell them to do that. I'll tell you something.
Again, what are real laws? What do you want to see? So, when you are debating about the left, you got to get to what they really want, which is full gun confiscation. Confiscation. I can't talk today. Sorry. So what they really want is a blanket gun ban, and when you bring that up, they'll get upset and they'll be like, "Oh, no, that's not what I want. We just want some reasonable gun laws." Well, then remind them that a vast majority of murders are committed with handguns. So why don't they want to remove the handguns from people? Exactly. Why don't you? And then if you're saying we don't care, well, why don't you care about the kids that are getting killed in Detroit compared to the kids who are getting killed in Florida or in Sandy Hook? It's just ridiculous to go out there and say that you want to ban all assault weapons when handguns are killing more. So then logically you would want a full gun confiscation. But then when you get that to work, when you get them to admit it, you got to explain why that doesn't work. So Australia is something that people often mention. So they had a gun buyback program. So then the government basically bought all the guns, or not all, but tried to buy all the guns back from the people. What actually happened is about 1/3 of the guns were removed. So then if the government did this, what would happen is all the law-abiding citizens would turn in their guns, as the law says. People who don't want to turn in their guns, usually when people who have malintent with their guns, are not going to turn in their guns, are not going to sell their guns back to the government. This would put guns in, this would take the percentage of people who have guns and make that a larger percent of people who have bad intents, bad people. So people are still going to, and in Australia, people are still killing people with guns. Also, especially when it comes to America, because America is America, 42% of Americans have guns. So really, I wish you luck trying to take guns away from 42% of the American population. This is an absolutely asinine idea that you would do this, because I guarantee there would be like some kind of physical like violence and fight against the removal of guns. This is an awful idea. The blanket gun ban is an awful idea, and it completely violates the Second Amendment, which is actually, some people are trying to call for the repeal of the Second Amendment, which I also think is ridiculous. But yeah, you got to get the left, you got to get them to admit what they really want, which is a blanket gun ban, because of that statistic that more people are killed with handguns than they are assault rifles. So why wouldn't you logically want a blanket gun ban? So next I'm going to talk about there was a chant apparently at a Florida shooting vigil for the students who died. They started chanting "No more guns." Here it is. They're chanting "No more guns." Then they use this. Then somebody uses this for a local political agenda, folks, right here.
If you're an elected official,
Sheriff of Broward County,
keep things the way they are and not do things differently. If you want to keep the gun laws as they are now, you will not get reelected in Broward County.
One of the biggest problems I have with this is that with situations like this is people putting feelings over facts. You know, that's something I hate. Facts, and I believe I've explained before why feelings can't always be related to facts, or why feelings shouldn't promote policy or drive policy, and why facts should instead. It doesn't matter how you feel. It's the right policy is the right policy factually, and that's what's got to happen. And I've explained before why emotion-backed policy is a bad idea. So grieving doesn't make you an expert. I hate when people think that just because you are you should never start out something like as a blank, like as a black woman, as a Jew, as a Hispanic. I don't know. You should not ever start off with that unless you're a professional, unless you've spent years studying this topic, then sure, you're an expert on it and you should talk about it. But just because you are, say, a victim of a shooting does not make you at all an expert on this. And I hate when the media portrays them as experts. But here, CNN interviewed a grieving mother who lost her daughter and screams at Trump for what she thinks he should do.
President Trump, you say, what can you do? You can stop the guns from getting into these children's hands. Put metal detectors at every entrance to the schools. What can you do? You can do a lot. This is not fair to our families, that our children go to school and have to get killed. I just spent the last 2 hours putting the burial arrangements for my daughter's funeral, who's 14. President Trump, please do something. Do something. Action! We need it now. These kids need safety now.
Okay, so she obviously has lost it. So metal detectors, honestly, I don't think that'd be a bad idea. But Trump, I don't know why you're yelling at Trump, because he doesn't exactly have the authority to immediately just put blanket metal detectors everywhere. What else did she say? Shoot, I forgot. What else can you do? Metal detectors, blah, blah, blah. What else? She said something else. She should get away from... No, but, I mean... She's begging for action, but like I said, Trump can't exactly do instantly, snap his fingers and boom, there's going to be security, extra security. I do think there should be security. I think a way to fix this is to have more security guards, so better security. Metal detectors, like I said, wouldn't be that bad of an idea. But again, just because she's grieving doesn't make her an expert on the topic, and I don't think that she should be treated as such. I mean, we all feel for her and all the victims, but this is it's asinine to say just because you're a victim, you've experienced this kind of situation means you're an expert on all of this and you know everything. And I don't like how the media does this. So also, I don't like how CNN would never do this kind of thing with a terrorist attack. They wouldn't, after a terrorist attack, they never interview families of victims or talk about a travel ban with them because it disagrees with their agenda. So obviously more bias here. I don't even think I can recall Fox News ever doing that either, but I don't think Fox News interviews victims like this, but you don't see CNN doing that with a terrorist attack, but like I said, because it disagrees with their agenda. So let's look at what the main problem is. So the main problem is that the law enforcement and FBI and government failed. Okay, the government failed to protect us from this guy. The report is, ready for this? The police were called to this kid's house 39 times. As a child, he was put in a place for violent juveniles. Also, he was expelled from the school and banned from having a backpack on school grounds. He commented on a YouTube video that he was going to be a school shooter, and it was reported to the FBI. He used to joke about doing it all the time and mentioned it, and that was also reported. So my question is, how was this guy able to get his hands on a gun? People need to do their job and stop people like this with these signs from getting a gun. This seems ridiculous, how this guy was able to legally obtain a gun. So obviously the problem isn't the fact that the gun is there. The problem was the fact that he was able to get it so easily. And if that doesn't make sense to you, I don't know what you're thinking. Because it's obvious that this guy had clear signs. And like I've continued to say, every single mass shooting that I can think of, there was signs beforehand that they were going to do it. And that's just ridiculous. This guy had so many signs and that he wasn't stopped from getting a gun. So also the idea that more guns mean more murder, that isn't exactly accurate, because more guns in specific places can mean more murder. But a study done by the American Public Health Association says that by state, more guns correlated with more homicide by firearms. This makes no sense because it is done on a state level. When almost all murder happens, it's in big cities, and in big cities there are the strictest gun laws. So that kind of contradicts a lot of things too. The biggest problem with these kind of things is that I've constantly hate the idea that correlation is causation. That's the biggest problem with some of these studies, because they're correlating the amount of guns and murder. So the biggest problem with this study is that the idea and opinions on it is the idea that correlation is causation. So more people need to realize that correlation is not causation at all. In fact, the biggest correlation with regards to homicides is between homicides and, wait for it, the number of black people. This isn't racist because correlation is not causation. So no, the more black people you have in a society does not mean it will cause a higher homicide rate. The claim along with the one correlating guns are equally ridiculous, because correlation is not causation. You can't come out and say that because there are more black people there will be more homicides, because that's just not accurate. So you shouldn't be going around saying that more guns causes more deaths. In fact, if there so also with the whole argument on the gun control, so like the government can't always be this godlike figure there to protect you. It just can't. The government, the police aren't always going to be there, and sometimes it's going to rely on us whether we live or die sometimes. And so that's one of the reasons I think that the gun laws are fine now how they are, with what guns are capable to be owned and whatnot. So also what does not show up in statistics is that are taken is the circumstance when guns are used to scare people away from breaking in somewhere or something like that. So when a gun isn't used, when it's not fired and it hits somebody, it's that statistic that's not recorded. It happens all the time when people use their guns to scare away a criminal, and it's helped them that they had their gun and it just didn't get recorded, and that happens all the time. So there's that statistic that people kind of ignore, that kind of skew statistics that people try to use for this argument. And so the idea that that with small arms, so the argument is that there's no way with the guns that are legal now, because with regards to the whole tyrannical government possibility, the argument is that if there's tyrannical government, there's no way that with the guns that Americans have now could be able to fight them. Well, you know what? The idea that us with small arms cannot defend against tyrannical government is flawed by examples like Vietnam and Afghanistan, where small small arms and guerrilla tactics have been able to defeat some of the best military forces in the world, like ours. Or even look at the American Revolution. The colonies used much less quality weapons and had less people intact and not nearly well as trained to beat the best current military in the world with much less. So that's huge. You can use these small things to beat large governments. So moving on, yes, less people are killed by guns every year in UK than the US, which is a common argument used. The UK has a blanket gun ban, so and they have less guns deaths. So obviously we need to have a blanket gun ban, okay? So no, that's probably because the UK has nearly 1/4 of the population of the U.S. If you do not want to ban handguns, even though there are more, so you got to consider that. And so if you do not want to ban handguns, even though there are more handgun deaths than assault weapon deaths, just because of mass shootings, typically use assault weapons, okay, then we can just talk mass shootings. So I'm gonna look according to the Crime Prevention Research Center. Here's a list from highest to lowest of death rate per million people due to mass public shootings from 2009 to 2015, and also I will be mentioning a frequency chart too. So number 1 is Norway, Serbia, France, Macedonia, Albania, Slovakia, Switzerland, Finland, Belgium, Czech Republic, and then the US at number 11. Then Austria, Netherlands, Canada, England, Germany, Russia, and Italy. It only has the top 18, but we're not even really that close to number 1. We're closer to the bottom than we are the top. There are 10 other people right before us on that one, the annual death rate. And the frequency, we're even down a tick. We're number 12. Macedonia, Albania, Serbia, Switzerland, Norway, Slovakia, Finland, Belgium, Austria, Czech Republic, France, US, Canada, Netherlands, Italy, England, Russia, Germany. So again, you got to look at the population too. I think that's a huge thing for that. So we're right now, real quick, I'm going to talk about these articles that I found. The first one that I want to kind of deconstruct. So the first one mentions that of Trump undoing an Obama rule that added mentally ill people to gun check register. So this article tries to claim that Trump undid a rule that held mentally ill people from getting guns. So it's trying to say Trump is supporting a rule that Trump is supporting mentally ill people having guns. Let me just look up something real quick to help. Okay, so this rule is apparently just a one that so the rule was preventing social security, people who receive social security checks. Well, no, it didn't prevent. It added them to the gun check register and referred to them as mentally ill, I believe. So Trump didn't do that. I don't exactly know why people who get social security checks are considered mentally ill, like this article tries to say. That doesn't make any sense, because sometimes you can be just old. You can be receiving social security checks for just being old or disabled physically, like blind, or if you can't walk. I don't know why that those people should be deprived of having a gun just because they're missing a leg. That doesn't make much sense. So Trump undid that rule. I don't know where the mentally ill part is at, because this mentions the Obama era gun checks regulation, and we're going to click on that link and look at that. And look at that right here. Actually, I can't. Where did it go? It explains it. The rule which finalized in December, added people receiving Social Security checks for mental illnesses and people deemed unfit to handle their own financial affairs to the National Background Check Database. So, okay. So then people deemed unfit to handle their own financial affairs. It seems too broad. The whole Social Security checks, it just seems too broad, and you got too many people under that are just unrealistic. We need, obviously, like I said, my solution is that just do their jobs. People should be fired in the FBI for missing this guy and not looking at him closer, and then letting him be able to buy a gun. And also, I just lost what I was going to say, but that people should be fired because of that stuff, and people need to basically just do their job. That's the only thing that seems to be a problem here. That's where I was going to go with that. I just remembered. It was the, I am completely also in favor. I think a decent place to go would be the, what's it called? The restraining order with guns, where people can file a report on somebody and be like, hey, this person's kind of violent and here's some proof of it, here's some evidence. And then they will basically be stripped of their gun rights. And then in 72 hours, within 72 hours, they'll have a trial, a court hearing to explain if they think they should have a gun, and they get a chance to explain why, and they can be explain why they think they should, and then they can determine if they should or not. So then the next article that I'm looking at it's entitled "What Explains U.S. Mass Shootings?" The international comparisons suggest an answer. So it basically suggests that it has to do with the guns. Let me just pull up. Oh, shoot. Where'd it go? I had a response to this. It was to my friend. Oh. Need to look for it now. Oh, there's my phone. Okay, so I had a good response to this. So the second article, this article, it relies heavily on the idea that correlation is causation, which I explained before is an awful idea, which in fact correlation does not at all mean causation. It correlates the number of shootings to all the number of guns, which is a statistic that, and then I mentioned before about the statistic with black people. So think of the idea of guns like this way. The bad guy, I remember now. So think of it like an equation. So your bad guy with a gun is a constant. This bad guy is going to have a gun no matter what. If you legalize all guns and have a blanket gun ban, the bad guy who has a shooter is still going to have the gun. If you did a blanket gun ban, there would still be guns out there. Just proof: Australia's blanket gun buyback program only took 1/3 of the guns. So, and in fact, future school shooters probably already have the guns they're going to use right now, as I speak, which is pretty upsetting, but it's true. So we need to do more to stop them from being able to have guns. But anyway, so your constant is the bad guy with the gun. And here's your options. You can either you can either have the blanket gun ban, so then it will be just the bad guy with the gun. Oh, and here's the other reason that the bad guy would still have the gun. So illegalizing guns completely will get guns off the streets, just like it worked with heroin, right? There's no more heroin out there. People aren't addicted to heroin anymore because it's illegal. How can somebody get their hands on something if it's illegal, right? No, bad people are still using it. So in fact, it's going to filter it and make it even worse. The bad people are going to be the only ones with the guns, and that's not going to be good because law-abiding people aren't going to go get a gun. Anyway, so your options are to have no guns, and the bad guy's just going to shoot defenseless people. Or you can have some guns, and then maybe 2 or 3 people might be armed in a mass shooting scenario and be able to point their guns at him and stop him from killing too many people. Or if a lot of people in the area happen to have a gun, they could all turn their guns on him, and he would probably be only able to kill 1 person. Maybe 2 at the most, compared to like 30 or 40, depending on the situation. So I think that's a really good analogy to look at, a really good way to look at it. So the bad guy's always going to be there. So which one would you rather have? Would you rather have them go and shoot defenseless people, or have them be stopped by a law-abiding citizen carrying a gun? So all these, again, I'm continuing to look through the news and see all these things about gun control, and then I'm still waiting to see like what exactly you want us to do. Because I would love to debate on somebody what they want to do, and I'm not exactly seeing any. I'm just hearing gun control, ban guns, just a general overlook. So that's that, and I don't really like how that goes. So next we're going to listen to some of the students talk about this. This is a minute long. Here we can listen to them. This came out today, I believe. It's from CNN.
Cameron Kasky, what is your message to the nation's leaders after what you have been through?
you know, the reason we are starting March for Our Lives and doing this on March 24th is we've been hearing a lot that this is not the time to talk about gun control. And we can respect that. We've lost people. It's important to mourn. Here's a time to talk about gun control. March 24th. My message for the people in office is you're either with us or against us.
This idea that you're either with us or against us, I don't like that. That's saying that because you support a different policy, that means you must hate me as a victim, and that means you don't care about me. I can't stand that. When victims or people are just telling me that I don't care enough about the victims, like, are you serious? Then I can turn around and tell you that because you want to ban just assault weapons, you don't care about the children who are being killed in Detroit or something like that by handguns. You don't care enough about them then. And also, that also means that you don't care enough, like I said before, if I don't care enough about the kids who are dying in school shootings because I don't support the stricter gun control, that means that you don't care enough about the people being killed by the MS-13 gang because you don't support tighter immigration laws.
We are losing our lives while the adults are playing around. And we have received endless support from your generation, and we thank everybody for that immensely because we really appreciate it. We don't need you. On March 24th, you are going to be seeing students in every single major city marching, and we have our lives on the line here. And at the end of the day, that is going to be what's bringing us to victory and to making some sort of right out of this tragedy.
So he's calling for, there's this thing that's gone around. First, I want to point out this march is supposed to protest the fact that they aren't doing anything about making tighter gun control. So first, I want to say that it was originally supposed to be on April 20th, 420. So three interesting things about that day. One, everybody knows National Weed Day. Yeah, bro. Obviously, you gotta have a walkout on Weed Day. And then, but anyway, number two, Hitler's birthday. Obviously, perfect day. It gets better. That's the day Columbine happened too. So March 24th it is then. They went back on that. So on making it 420. So it's now on March 24th. These students are supposed to walk out. So at my school, it's a school of 3,000 kids. Pretty big school. So I would assume, but in Indiana, it's pretty Republican. So I don't know. But there are a lot of Democrats still at my school. So I want to see if this walkout thing kind of plays out at my school. And if the school administration lets them do it, then I will start my own BS protest. And if they don't let me walk out with a group of other students possibly want to do it, then I'm going to have a lot of trouble with them, with my administration, because they let the other students walk out. And that's going to be a big issue. So I hope that if people walk out, they receive the proper punishment for walking out of school, because this is not something that should happen. It's just ridiculous. So, like I've continued to say, just because you are a victim does not make you an expert on any topic whatsoever. I don't understand that. I don't really get why people think that you are an expert on something just because you are a victim of this issue. So anyway, so when talking about this, first, when you're debating a leftist, you gotta get them to admit that they want the blanket gun ban. That's first, because nobody really wants that, because Second Amendment, that would never be able to happen in America. So, to get them to do that, you've got to use the statistic that more people are killed with handguns every single year, all the time. A substantial amount more people are than anyone else. So, and then if you do that, that'll work. My favorite video, almost my favorite video ever. I'm gonna pull it up right here. And what's his name? Here we are. We're gonna get us some good, high quality ownage right here today in just a minute. But first, we're going to talk about the NRA. So the NRA, everybody's jumping on board with the NRA is funding Republicans. The NRA is funding them and they're paying people off to support be against gun control. No, the NRA has paid a minuscule amount of people's budget for campaigning. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. And there's actually more evidence of Democrats being paid off by the unions. Wow. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Just the NRA, the amount of funding that's gone into like a single person, like the Trump campaign, was a minuscule. It seems like a lot of money when you just say the amount of money, but it's a minuscule percentage of the amount of money that went into his campaign. So here's a treat for everybody: Ben Shapiro and Piers Morgan on guns.
Strong words from Vice President Biden, who heads the White House Task Force on Guns. My next guest has strong words for me. He says, I'm off the rails on guns in America. Ben Shapiro is editor-at-large at Breitbart.com and the author of Bullies, How the Left's Culture of Fear and Intimidation Silences Americans. So why am I off the rails, Mr. Shapiro?
Honestly, Piers, you've kind of been a bully on this issue because what
He's doing what he always does. He tries to put himself on the moral high ground right here, Ben Shapiro, what he's doing. So he's going to tell him that he stands on the graves of the children, which is exactly what Piers Morgan does. I hate when people come out and say that you don't care enough about the victims. Of course you did. Of course somebody does. Or they're inhuman.
you do, and I've seen it repeatedly on your show, I watch your show, and I've seen it repeatedly, what you tend to do is you tend to demonize people who differ from you politically by standing on the graves of the children of Sandy Hook, saying they don't seem to care enough about the dead kids. If they cared more about the dead kids, they would agree with you on policy. I think we can have a rational political conversation about balancing rights and risks and rewards of all of these different policies, but I don't think that what we need to do is demonize people on the other side as being unfeeling about what happened in Sandy Hook.
How dare you accuse me of standing
He
on the
continues
grave?
to say, I dare you, but I think that he doesn't ever have actual retaliation because Ben Shapiro is right.
Of the children that died.
Repeatedly. What you do, and I've seen you do it on the program, is you keep saying to folks that if they disagree with you politically, then somehow this is a violation of what happened in Sandy Hook. And you have yet, I'd really like to hear your policy prescriptions for what we should do about guns. Because you say that you respect the Second Amendment, and you know I brought this here for you so that you can read it. It's the Constitution. And I would really like for you to explain to me what you would do about guns that would have prevented what happened in Sandy Hook. If you want to do what you did in the UK, right, which is ban virtually all guns, that is at least a fair argument. And we can have a discussion about whether that's something that we ought to do or
I've
not.
made it very clear what I want to do, which is exactly what Mark Kelly wants to do. And in fact, rather than address
Okay, so let's talk about that.
Rather than address your comments to me about standing on the graves of children at Sandy Hook, you can address them to Mark Kelly because he agrees with everything.
I don't know why he says to address them to Mark Kelly, even though he says he's agreed with you. You're the one who said them. You should be able to defend the things you've said.
Everything that I've been saying, because he feels the same way as does his wife. They're gun owners. They both respect the Second Amendment of the Constitution. They don't want to take away anybody's right to defend themselves with guns.
Well, they want to take away certain types of guns, obviously.
They want to take away assault weapons, a ridiculous amount of bullets.
Well, this is
in
a
very
question I
short
wanted to
period of
ask you,
time.
Piers, because I've seen you talk about assault weapons a lot, and I've seen Mark Kelly talk about assault weapons. The vast majority of murders in this country that are committed with guns are not committed with assault weapons. They're committed with handguns.
Okay,
so are you willing to ban handguns in this country across the country?
No, that's not what I'm asking for.
Why not?
Let me ask you.
Don't you care about the kids who are being killed in Chicago as much as the kids in Sandy Hook?
Yes, I do.
roasted.
Then why don't you care about banning the handguns in Chicago?
We'll come to that. Let me ask you this.
Then he goes on to say,
What was the weapon used at Aurora in the movie theater?
that's what he
It was
does every
in,
single
yeah,
time.
it was an
What is
assault
the
rifle.
weapon
Sure.
used in this shooting,
What was
in
the
this
weapon?
shooting, in this
So
shooting?
the last 4 mass shootings in America were all the assault rifles.
And the vast
See, that is the
majority.
reason,
Well,
Mr. Shapiro. And you can smirk at me, and you can, like me and Mark Kelly and Gabrielle Giffords, want to have assault weapons like that removed from civilian hands.
Your passion
That
on
is
the issue
point.
doesn't really justify the rationale for why you want to ban assault weapons,
You
but
don't
not
understand
handguns.
why we want to remove the preferred weapon of choice, these killing machines,
Well, I would like
from
you to
the hands of deranged young men.
All I'm asking is for you to be philosophically consistent. If what you're worried about is the removal of killing machines from the hands of deranged young people, then maybe we should talk about a blanket gun ban. And let's get to what the left really wants here. And you say that you're for
Why
the
is it
Second
about
Amendment.
left or right? Because in Britain, there's never.
Believes that the basis for the Second Amendment, and they believe in the Second Amendment, the basis for the Second Amendment is not really about self-defense and it's not about hunting. It is about resistance to government tyranny. That's what the founders said, and that's what the right believes in this country.
Which tyranny are you fearing yourself?
I fear the possibility of a tyranny rise.
And so that's pretty good. I think that's one of the best gun control arguments and debates I've ever seen. It is really good. You should watch the whole thing. You can find it on YouTube real easy. But I'm always up for debate on people with this because I think gun control is one of the things that I'm able to debate the best. Although everybody who wants to debate me on it could actually listen to the show and then like actually have an advantage on me for knowing how I debate and then being able to come up with an argument in advance because they know how I'm going to argue against them. But but also real quick, I do want to mention that I don't think the media should continue to name and glorify these shooters because I don't like the idea of taking these mass shooters and putting their name literally everywhere, because some people will do it just for that sole purpose. And also there are people, sadly, I'm sadly saying that there are people that are being inspired by this, and I see one possibly happening in the future if we don't fix up the government and fix up what they're doing wrong, and which is letting people like him with these awful red flags slide by. So I promised last week a decent episode out of today. I hope you were satisfied with this one. You guys can email me anything, comments, questions. I will answer on the show unless you say not to. Just leave your name at the RileyReportUSA@gmail.com. I will be back here next Monday. Have a good 4-day week for a lot of people if you're in school. My name is Jason Riley, and this is the Riley Report. All right.